God, wait, look at this video, it's so funny.
Oh, that's AI. That's not real.
I guess I always just assumed it would be global warming, but it's looking a little bit like robots.
It's at a point now where I have to just assume every silly little video on my For You page is AI.
Like, I'm literally scrolling through TikTok, questioning if what I'm watching is real or if it's AI.
Nearly half of online articles are written by AI.
I just found out that my husband used AI to write his vows. How do I approach him about this?
Generative AI is an apocalyptic level threat to humanity.
And it's these real people. They're seeing their work called AI anyway.
We're gonna end up building the type of future that we don't want. What the f is the world?
Is this a game? AI didn't arrive with a bang. It slipped into our lives quietly. The weird part isn't that AI is powerful, it's how normal it already feels.
Hey, how do you keep getting in here? Oh my god, she keeps trying to steal my job. Anyway, what I was going to talk about today was the history of elevator music, but given the circumstances, maybe we should talk about AI and how it's increasingly poking around in spaces it has no business being in. Because whether we like it or not, AI is here and is shaping what we say and how we think. With that, people are coping by mostly falling into one of two camps. Either they're blissfully ignorant, accepting the AI takeover without question, or they get swept up in the mass paranoia, doubting if anything they see online is real. What happens to a world when humanity loses its voice in creation, and when there's no accountability for truth anymore? Well, buckle up, because that is what we're going to try and get to the bottom of today. So the issue with many conversations about AI is that we often still talk about it as if it's some distant sci-fi future rather than an already established reality. Because the truth is that we are fully encompassed by the AI world at this point. As said here, AI is no longer a tool we use, it's an atmosphere we live in. I think we tend to box in AI like that because a lot of its applications have been slyly integrated into tools and platforms that we already use and are familiar with.
You guys know that product that our customers love and that works totally fine as is? Could we make that AI somehow? Yeah, and could we make it look like shit and make sure that it doesn't really work anymore? Yes, that is perfect.
For example, we are all painfully aware of the annoying AI response suggestions in our email boxes, as well as the AI summaries in our Google searches now. But those are just user interface applications, and most of the changes are happening behind the scenes in software updates. Like how pretty much anywhere you shop online, the personalized product recommendations are AI dictated based on your previous shopping activity. The pricing of said items are also AI run based on supply, demand, and again, all of your data. It's in our music apps suggesting the next best song for us. Our navigation tools use AI to predict congestion before it fully forms. Social media platforms are mostly run by AI now, with the most recent update including AI moderators screwing up all of our feeds. Hell, it's even in the Grammarly extension that I installed back in college and use as my autocorrect in writing this very script. The point being that AI is completely unavoidable at this point if you are a part of the modern world. As written here, my morning routine alone involves more AI than a Star Trek episode. My alarm adjusts based on my sleep cycles, my calendar app suggests optimal meeting times, my newsfeed is curated by algorithms that know I'll click on space news and ignore sports. Even my coffee maker preheats based on when I usually stumble into the kitchen looking like a confused zombie. But it doesn't stop there, as this invasion of AI is only gaining traction. Recently, Tesla implemented the always listening Grok into their cars, where you can press and hold a voice button on the steering wheel to ask AI if you should break up with your boyfriend.
There's a gray area in terms of our data collection so that we are kind of like listening quite aggressively.
We're listening?
Yeah, it's just to like maximize the user experience.
But also that's only so long as Tesla keeps making cars, because they did just announce that they're dropping production of the Model 3 and Model Y to focus more of its efforts on their Optimus humanoid robots. Just what we wanted. As well, a lot of people this past month got the shock of their lives when they realized that their new favorite Spotify artist was actually AI. Sienna Rose, an emerging R&B artist with millions of streams, sounded so authentic that it wasn't wasn't until months after her debut that people started questioning her realness. And when the news broke, people didn't just feel scammed, but they felt a genuine sense of loss over the music they had formed real emotional connections with. The fans had their disillusionment, wanted Rose to be true, and regretted losing the soul in her music.
Guys, big fan of music over here. Just found out that my favorite artist is an AI. And I'm talking about Sienna Rose. I think that's her name is. It's AI. Like, songwriting, vocal, everything is AI. She's probably going to come up on my Spotify Wrapped and I'm going to look like a freaking idiot.
But Sienna Rose is just one of many AI artists taking over the music industry. There was also Walk the Walk by Breaking Rust, which topped Spotify's charts, and it's so good that you wouldn't really think of accusing it as being AI if you didn't know. Beyond music, we do have to address the world of AI slop photos and videos that are plaguing our feeds these days. But this slop may actually only be a short-term problem for us because as time goes on, it's getting harder and harder to distinguish real from fake at this point, and so the very idea of slop may become obsolete. Because while some AI content is very obviously AI, some of it, particularly AI photos, have become so realistic that, again, you wouldn't know that it was computer generated. AI videos definitely have the most room for improvement between the fuzzy voices and weird motion blur that have become familiar red flags of AI. But even still, sometimes if you're not looking for it, you can be bamboozled too. And this is because the very people who create the AI content also know the telltale signs and find ways to get around it. We saw this in the recent rise of AI generated like security footage and similar formats. Because this style of video is already expected to be low quality, it makes it so easy for AI to look realistic with black and white granular footage and often no spoken words. There was also that stupid dancing baby AI filter. I don't actually know what you call that, but I think you like submit a photo in and the AI platform makes your baby dance. I'm actually not quite sure how it works. But the first time I saw it, I thought that it was real for a few seconds. I'm so embarrassed. But once the baby actually started doing that little coordinated hop part of the dance, I'll show it on screen. My first thought wasn't, oh, that looks AI. Rather, oh, a baby can't do that, so this must be fake. It's a very unbelievable time to be living in. But this brings us to a very interesting phenomenon going on, which is AI paranoia. Something I'm sure a lot of us are dealing with because we're constantly scrolling through the internet with our guards up, questioning whether everything is AI. I just had this the other day when I saw the recent Kendall Jenner ad for some gambling app. The whole time I was like, oh, this for sure is AI because her motions were weird and her mouth movements seemed off. So of course I went to the comments to see if anyone else was calling it out, and no one said, is this AI? So then I went to Google to double check, and again, apparently it's real. So now I feel like I'm not just trying to protect myself from being tricked by AI, but also trying to not anxiously accuse reality of being fake. But unfortunately, this is a collective curse that a lot of us are dealing with and will only get worse over time.
I'd like to hear less about AI.
Because once we reach the singularity point where AI and reality become indistinguishable, then we risk losing trust in all our media. At that point, everything will just be assumed to be AI generated unless proven otherwise. All of this has led me to craving things that are real and tangible, like handmade bread. And that brings us to today's sponsor, Wildgrain. Wildgrain is the first bake from frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, artisanal pastries, and fresh pastas. What sets their baked goods apart is their attention to quality, as they partner with small bakers and pasta makers across the country to keep the tradition of artisanal and nutritious food alive. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I am a terrible cook / baker, but I also am a huge pastry lover, which is quite the predicament to be in. And yes, I could learn how to bake, but honestly, it's just not for me. The other day, even Josh asked me to get started on the pizza dough before he got home, and I did end up crying in the process. Mind you, I was already having an emotional day, but it just goes to show that overall, that's not something I like doing. And that's why Wildgrain is such a cool company, because unlike many store-bought options, Wildgrain uses simple ingredients that you can actually pronounce and a slow fermentation process that can be easier on your belly and richer in nutrients and antioxidants, which means I'm not compromising by not making it myself. You just pull whatever you want out of the freezer and throw it directly in the the oven, and everything takes 25 minutes or less to bake. I just really love the convenience of it all. The other night after a wonderful dinner that Josh made for us, I wanted a sweet treat, of course. And so I grabbed the chocolate croissants and threw them in the oven. And by the time we were finished tidying up our dishes, fresh, crispy, chocolatey croissants were ready for us. It was everything I could have ever wanted. On top of that, Wildgrain is consistently adding seasonal products and new products, gluten-free, vegan, and new protein boxes. And with every box you order, 2 meals are donated to a food security nonprofit of your choice at no extra cost. So if you would like to check out Wildgrain, be sure to use the link in the description, as well as my discount code EMBERS to get $30 off your first box. Plus, you will get free croissants for life. So I want to talk about what inspired this video now, which is that I've gotten, as far as I've seen, a grand total of 3 comments over the past year accusing my essays of being written by AI, which first of all, I do take offense because that's not a compliment when AI writing is just bad as of right now. But second of all, I just find it so interesting. Interesting that there's something about my essays that make these 3 people think that it's AI. I do also want to say that I'm not surprised to have comments like that in a world where AI is taking over YouTube in a lot of ways. Even at the end of last year, YouTube CEO said that in December alone, more than 1 million YouTube channels used the platform's AI tools to make content. So it's good to have your guard up, but spotting it is still tricky because right now, AI writing is definitely one of the harder mediums to detect as fraudulent unless you know what you're looking for. This has been a huge topic of discussion over the past year, that AI writing has a sort of accent to it and discrete clues that it leaves behind with an essence of computer generation. Because while it writes based on real human writing, it's not so much what it's saying, but how it says it that sounds off. So let's break down the signs and why I think I got those comments. I do have to address the M dashes that we are all familiar with as being clearly AI because they're just everywhere.
And then we don't touch this one because it's dirty, because it's on the floor. We don't touch it. We don't touch it. We don't touch it.
But there's more to it. Like, a lot of specific words are often giveaways. AI loves to throw around delve and quietly into everything, no matter the context, but there's really interesting reasons for this. The word delve, for one, while not a super common word in everyday language in North America, is actually very common in Nigeria. And since Nigeria has one of the world's largest English-speaking populations, AI is probably just pulling its sources from that country. But it's increased in usage so much that in 2022, the word appeared in roughly 1 in every 10,000 abstracts collected in PubMed. By 2024, usage had shot up by 2,700%. The word quietly has a more interesting background, however. So apparently, AI loves quietness as a way to elevate a piece of writing by referring to the senses. The problem is that AI doesn't have any senses, so it's doing its best to write as if it does. It's kind of like those memes of aliens trying to be human, but it just sounds slightly off and something's missing. The AI is trying to write well. It knows that good writing involves subtlety, things that are said quietly or not at all, things that are halfway present and left for the reader to draw out themselves. So to reproduce the effect, it screams at the top of its voice about how absolutely everything in sight is shadowy, subtle, and quiet. But to move on from punctuation and individual words, the sentence structure itself can also be a big giveaway of AI writing. The biggest way it does this is with the format it loves to use, which is the formula it's not X, it's Y, along with it's not just X, it's Y. We saw this in the intro I wrote for this video, saying it's not that AI is powerful, it's how normal it already feels. AI also has a propensity to stop midway through a thought to ask a question as a way to break things up in a very human way, like, and honestly, or the truth, or sound familiar. Lastly, AI is obsessed with using the rule of 3 in writing as if it can't help itself but group things in 3. And that makes sense because it's a very common format for humans to use, right? Like live, laugh, love, and blood, sweat, and tears. The difference is that it uses 3s everywhere, even when the 3s don't really make sense. Again, in the intro, it used this format in 2 of the 5 sentences I told it to write. A didn't arrive with a bang, it slipped into our lives quietly, one recommendation, one filter, one shortcut at a time. Just think about that for a second. AI slipping into our lives, one recommendation, one filter. I get what it's trying to say, that the algorithm and social media filters have become AI powered, but I just feel like that's not how most people would primarily describe AI infiltrating their lives. Like, it's a part of the mix, but it just seems a little off, you know? That brings us to the next level of AI detection, which is that everything sounds like a robot wrote it.
Cards night with the other males. I can't wait to get started. Let me know if you need anything else from me to make this night more fun.
Yeah, just act normal, dude.
All right, guys. I'll start acting more normal.
Is it a wink? Is that supposed to be a wink?
This is, of course, because AI has a hard time sounding human when it has no human experience. So more often than not, its writing sounds very analytical, formal, and just has no life to it. As said here, the AI written paragraph doesn't seem to behave like a human. Human writing has a certain variety. It's almost ineffable. Linguistics attributes this to the concept of bursts in writing. Humans think as they write. As they stitch together ideas, they don't think in uniform patterns, which results in uneven sentences. These bursts make the sentences, hopefully, more interesting to read. It means, too, that sentences aren't always dense. AI, however, is very dense, which it's probably trying to offset by using all those short questions mid-sentence. But overall, the writing just sounds transactional, as if someone was thinking too much about it and overdoing it in their writing. As said here, the result is a dull, soulless work that lacks character, nuance, and dimension. Everything that makes writing interesting. It even feels like it's for robots, funny enough. AI creates work so perfect in a way that it becomes boring and, to me, painful to read. Okay, so those are the heavy hitters in AI detection, but why was my work accused of being AI? Now, I will say that 3 accusations that my video was AI written doesn't, carry much weight.
Did a good job getting rid of Kelly! At least I don't lie to the police. How dare you accuse me?
But I just find it tells a bigger story about why we would think that in the first place. I think this really comes down to the fact that I am not a good writer. Like, I see all these video essayists online who went to school for creating, writing, or adjacent, and I'm like, wow, do they ever have a way with words? And I am just not that. And that's okay. This isn't a pity party for me. It's just a fact that I write these essays because I'm super interested in the subjects, not because I'm a writer. As I've said before, in school, English was my worst subject. And when I tried my hardest, I could muster up a B. But sciences were really my strong suit. And because of that, all the writing I did in college was analytical. Research essays and lab reports were my bread and butter. And so that's my default mode for writing. When I'm tired or feeling lazy, I tend to write very matter-of-fact and leave out any personality. I don't have a vast vocabulary of transitional phrases or analogies to throw around to prove that I'm human. On top of that, all of these red flag words that were innocent enough a few years ago will now make people suspicious of your authenticity, even if it's just a word in your vocabulary. I recently read that college professors are now clocking the word moreover as a AI telltale sign. And I was so offended because I held on to that word for dear life in high school as a way to try and sound smart in my C+ essays. Okay, but I want to get into why I'm sharing this in the first place because it's starting to feel like oversharing. So first of all, I think this all speaks to the AI paranoia problem, that people are quick to falsely write off something as being AI when they get any whiff of suspicion. This Substack by John R. Gallagher shares his firsthand experience with the mental turmoil of falsely identifying something as AI. I got so suspicious that I thought a policy-based academic article had been written by AI, but the publication came out in 2019. I'm concerned with the consequences of my own disposition. It's affecting my personal cognition as well as the way I read and write now. And that leads us to the other side of the coin, which is the rise in creators themselves being paranoid and trying to sound human.
I'm gonna be completely honest, as a writer and aspiring author, one of my biggest fears nowadays is that someone is going to think that my work is AI, even though it is not, and I am completely against AI. I don't know if any other authors have this fear or not, but tell me why. I just saw a bunch of TikToks basically listing out common phrases, words, and punctuations that AIs use when writing something, and then I was looking at my own writing and I was like, wait a minute. I use the word kaleidoscope. I love a good em dash. I love using adjectives and adverbs. What if people think that my work is AI?
Like for myself, I'm now trying to avoid it's not this, it's that sentence structure, even though that's how I talk. It's my crummy writing, and I have the right to claim it as my own. It's all just so dystopian, but I feel like ever since this AI sleuthing began, I've also been trying to learn how to sound more human. This is a common sentiment amongst writers. As said here, in personal communications, I began to experience a newfound self-consciousness. Was that M- really necessary? Was the voice perhaps a little impersonal? It went the other way around too. Any writing I encountered digitally was now subject to the same interrogation. Was there something about it that felt a little bit uncanny, a little bit ChatGPT? And so we've arrived at a place where there's a rise in sloppier writing, or at least less polished writing, to prove the human origin. In my video essays, I used to try and sound as perfect as I could to make sure that I was delivering the information in the most accurate and concise way. Now I feel the need to include all of my in-between thoughts and roundabout thinking to prove that it came from my head. But I don't know how to proceed here because the AI takeover of our written media is real.
There you go. Enjoy your... So you're not a robot, are you?
No, I'm not.
Well, keep your eyes peeled. They're everywhere.
Last year, a survey by Britain's Society of Authors found that 20% of fiction and 25% of nonfiction writers were allowing generative AI to do some of their work. Articles full of strange and false material thought to be AI generated have been found in Business Insider, the Chicago Sun-Times, but probably hundreds, if not thousands, more have gone unnoticed. So what is to be done except include their typos and silly quips to ward off the slop allegations? And also, where does this end? Do we continuously downgrade our writing, or do we just live in a world where we write for ourselves, knowing that no one will believe the humanity behind it? So I want to follow this up with a question. Why does any of this matter anyway? Many have posed this question with the rise of AI, arguing that it's fine if AI takes all the writing off our hands, as it's just the natural progression of our relationship with technology. When the printing press was created, there was pushback as well, because during a time of oral tradition, printed books felt alien and like an attack on their cultural norms. Because if a heartless machine can copy reality, then what's the role of the writer? Fast forward 500 years, and we don't even think to ask this question because printed media is a part of our cultural norm. But as you can expect, I don't agree with this comparison, primarily because all of the technological advances that are used in defense of AI aren't really comparable. The printing press, the camera, and the computer all acted as a support to the artist. They didn't replace the artist. AI, however, doesn't just support, but it takes over creation completely, leaving no trace of humanity behind. Like, there's a difference between me using a keyboard as a tool to transcribe my thoughts and the keyboard taking control of the keys and writing its own storyline. But in succumbing to the pressure to use AI so you don't get left behind, as they say, means that we're giving up what makes our work our own. Because the thing with creativity is that it's inseparable from the human experience behind it. And I think we feel that every time AI makes something, right? Like the emptiness behind it, that there's no heart, no thoughts, memories, emotions, or struggles, or even intentions. It's just output. The extraordinary and untapped creative potential of flesh and blood people was one of the reasons why we matter. Creativity defines humanity. Every one of us is unique and distinctive, no matter how many extraterrestrial life forms may exist. The idea that machines could or should take over making art or writing diminishes the work of teachers, of human-authored books about how to make art and write, and the fact that people can learn stuff.
The act of creating is a strenuous one. And it's also a beautiful one. It simulates the life you are trying to write about. I like to think about it as like you want to get like super buff at the gym. So instead of putting in the effort, you just like use steroids. And yeah, you get the results you want quicker. However, you are actually hurting your body.
Just recently, Brandon Sanderson did a speech on this topic and the relationship between art and AI, and it was really good. I'll link it down below. One of his main takeaways was the idea that the process of making art matters more than the finished product, and that art can't exist without the journey it takes the artist to get there.
In Star Trek Next Generation, we got Data, right? He's an android, and a lot of his character arcs were about exploring what it means to be human. One of the recurring themes in the show was his attempts to create art, painting, poetry, music, become a comedian, take my wharf, please, classic line. I rooted for Data, a synthetic being without emotions, trying so hard to understand the human experience, and I still do. I have no problem with data creating art. If he were real, I'd applaud him. This is the difference between data and a large language model, at least the ones operating right now. Data created art because he wanted to grow. He wanted to become something. He wanted to understand. Art is the means by which we become what we want to be.
But I think this feeling of emptiness in using AI is something we've all experienced at some point if we've used it enough. The icky feeling of letting AI do too much to the point where you aren't a part of the equation anymore. My experience with this was around when it first came out, 2023 is when it came out? When we were all naive and experimenting with it. I had to write a card for someone, which I think is a common struggle to try and write a good card for someone. Anyway, I figured I would plug into ChatGPT the points I wanted to cover and just transcribe it onto the card. What could go wrong? But it wasn't until I handed the card over to the recipient that I realized my grave mistake. Because that's when I connected that the words I wrote on that card were literally no different than the generic message printed inside the card. Like, yes, mine was more tailored to the specific person, but it didn't really come from me, did it? And the truth is that I would have been better off writing a not so polished or articulate message, but one that had actually come from my own thoughts and emotions. But unfortunately, this is just the way things are now. Most people have given in to offloading their words to AI, sometimes for mundane tasks, but also for more personal situations. In a Brookings Institution survey released in November, 57% of respondents said that they used generative AI for personal purposes. 15 to 20% used it for social media or communication. And it makes sense, right? Like, we can't blame people. No one wants to write that email or sound dumb in the message you sent to your ex-boyfriend after Grok told you to break up with him. It's just so much easier to let AI take the load off and complete the task better than you ever could, and in a fraction of the time. For too long, essentially all writing might be AI. On social media, it's already happening. Instagram has rolled out an integrated AI in its comments system. Instead of leaving your own weird note on a stranger's selfie, you allow Meta AI to render your thoughts in its own language. This can be funny, supportive, casual, absurd, or emoji. In absurd mode, instead of saying looking good, I could write looking so sharp I just cut myself on your vibe. That's so cringy. Essentially, every major email client now offers a similar service. Your rambling message can be instantly translated into fluent AIEs. But the thing is, it's all harmless until it isn't. And the further we take this, the more our humanity is at stake.
I just found out that my husband used AI to write his vows. When my husband read his vows, I remember thinking how it sounded very formal and not at all how he usually speaks. But I just chalked that up to him taking the time to think about his vows and make them sound the best that he could. They were really nice and made me cry, and everyone else seemed to think they were really great too. Fast forward to today, I went on our shared ChatGPT account since we don't need it anymore, and I was canceling it. I happened to see something titled Vows, and I went and clicked on it, and lo and behold, there it was. His vows 100% verbatim. I saw the prompt that he provided and it was all the major themes that were in the vows, but he literally just copied and pasted the generated text and read it as if it were his own words.
In this Atlantic article, they share a very similar experience to mine with the card, but one that shows how much we have to lose if we continue to let AI speak for us. They say, my friend recently attended a funeral, and midway through the eulogy, he became convinced that it had been written by AI. There was the telltale proliferation of abstract nouns, a surfeit of assertions that the deceased was not just X, he was Y, coupled with a lack of concrete anecdotes and more appearances of the word collaborate than you would expect from a rec league hockey teammate. It was both too good in terms of being grammatically correct and not good enough in terms of being particular. My friend had no definitive proof that he was listening to AI, but his position, and I agree with him, is that when you know, you know. His sense was that he had just heard a computer save a man from thinking about his dead friend. AI was sold to us as a way to offload the parts of humanity that aren't beneficial to us. We could be relieved of all the boring and tiresome tasks of life to be free to do more intellectual and creative, rewarding work. But as we know, that's just not how it's panned out, and not the AI that they gave us. Behind promises of their technologies enhancing productivity, unlocking economic freedom, and creating new jobs that would ameliorate automation, the present-day reality has become the opposite. Companies pad their bottom lines, while the most economically vulnerable lose out and more highly educated people become ventriloquists for chatbots. The truth is that the future we were sold was a fallacy, one where we have robots writing books, dictating our media, and acting like the middleman to the people that are most important to us. And here I am second-guessing that sentence because of the group of three. But to end on this quote, why don't we fight back? Because it's comfortable. AI relieves us from complexity. It gives us answers, direction, and suggestions. It remembers birthdays, corrects typos, plans routes, and translates languages in real time. It's not intrusive, it's helpful. It's not controlling, it's convenient. But comfort is a seductive cage. We forget how to get lost in a city, how to write a letter by hand, how to research without Googling, how to listen without subtitles. We don't question the recommendations. We don't resist the nudges. We just swipe, scroll, click, and surrender. And slowly, the invasion completes itself. Okay, final thoughts. I don't think you can do a video about AI without it sounding super sad. At least at this point. You know, we still have the chance to turn things around, but as of right now, not looking good. And I think it's just really important to talk about this and realize that AI usage shouldn't be taken too lightly, and just to know what the consequences are. Does this count as seeing things getting better? I don't know. I know that Pinterest just added an option to exclude AI content from your feed. It's such a small step in the right direction, but it's something. But also I did that and I swear I still have some AI content on my feed. Maybe it's the paranoia. Maybe it's Maybelline. I also want to say that I do still think AI has a place in this world, like in the medical field. But that is all I have for you today. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't and check out my merch. I have a hat that says well informed and frightened, and that feels very applicable to 2026. All the proceeds also go to the SA Foundation, so you can feel good about your purchase. But other than that, I encourage you this week to write a poorly written, thoughtful note to someone you love in your life. Bye.
Yo, Google. Yeah, you. Why are tomatoes red?
Oh, yeah,
I got it.
They're blue.
No, why are they red? Why are tomatoes red?
I need more water. Give me 1 second.